Hey guys, welcome back to the Super Kai Guy channel. About 9 months ago, I posted a video where I installed an aftermarket Apple CarPlay and Android Auto module in my 2014 BMW 550. Since then, I have answered many questions in the comments, emails, and on my Instagram. But it seems that I'm answering the same questions over and over again. And now that I have used it for many months, I figured I'd put it all into one place. So in this video, I will talk about the pros and cons, missing functionality, extra features, compatibility, and answer all of your questions as well. I'm making this video so you can make an informed decision and not waste your money. So hit that like button if you like the video and leave your comments down below with any additional questions. When I first installed this aftermarket Apple CarPlay on my BMW, I got lots of people asking about the quality and all of the features. Of course, at that time, I've only used it for a day or two and couldn't give all of the answers. But now I'm ready to tackle this one. The most common concern for people was whether it would fit their specific year and model car. Well, to answer this one, you have to understand BMW's iDrive systems a little bit. The earliest system you can install Apple CarPlay using this method and without replacing parts is the iDrive CCC, which came out on some BMWs in as early as 2004 model year. This system was in use until 2010 model years on some cars. So if your car has this screen, you need the CCC version of the device. The next system was the Car Information Computer, or CIC, and it looked like this. If your screen looks like this, you will need an aftermarket unit made for the CIC iDrive. You cannot interchange these unless the unit you get was made specifically to work with both versions, which isn't very common. This iDrive version was on BMWs between 2009 and 2014. I will post a list of different models in the description or comments for your reference. Check those out before you purchase one. BMW introduced a further update to the iDrive system in the early 2012 and called it the next best thing, also known as the NBT, which is what I have in my car and what I showed in the video. This is for 2013 to 2018 model years. But once again, it varies depending on the model. As an example, on the BMW 5 Series F10, it's from 2014 to 2016 model years. The last system you can update using this method is the iDrive NBT Evo, which of course replaced the original NBT iDrive system and is still being used on many models today. And it looks like this. I hope it clears up some of the questions as to what unit you need for your car. Please do your research, refer to the list in the description, and make sure you understand which iDrive you have before you order. If you're more adventurous, you can also remove the screen in your car and take a look at the connectors on the back. On the F10 5 Series, if the connector has 4 pins, it's the CIC version, and if it has 6 pins, it's the NBT system. If you're having trouble with this, leave a comment down below, and I will do my best to help you. Alright, so you know which unit you need, but you have some more questions. Let's see if I can clear some of those questions up. I know my biggest concern before installing this unit was how fast and how accurately it would connect to my phone. Well, it connects perfectly about 98% of the time. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you don't have your Bluetooth or Wi-Fi on your phone, it will sometimes connect halfway and you're just kind of stuck at this screen. You then would have to manually connect to the correct system in the Bluetooth or Wi-Fi settings. That's not the only way you can mess up the connection. I have had times where it would refuse to connect and I would have to restart the unit by holding the back button for about 3 seconds. Now, it doesn't really give you a reason why it happened and I couldn't really figure it out, so that was my only solution at the time. This has happened about 10 times in the 9 months that I've owned this unit, so clearly it's not that big of an issue. That's actually a very small number in my opinion, and I've been very happy with how fast and reliable it has been overall. My second biggest concern installing an aftermarket Apple CarPlay unit was audio quality. Most BMWs have a wonderfully balanced and great sounding system, so I was worried it would ruin the experience. Once again, it's not perfect by any means. It sounds great at almost any sound level, but as soon as you turn it up past a certain point, there is a slight hissing noise that becomes pretty apparent. Of course, the volume has to be very loud at this point and there has to be silent moments in whatever you're listening to. And I think this is my main concern, but definitely not a deal breaker since it's only at very high listening levels. To reduce this as much as possible, go to the settings and make sure your volume is set to the max. Now let's do some rapid fire questions and then finish the video with my final thoughts. We have already answered what cars it can be installed in and the different options, but does it use the original camera or do you have to get an aftermarket one? Well, you can switch between aftermarket and original in the settings, so it's up to you. And if your car doesn't have one, you can install an aftermarket one and use that camera. Okay, but how does the camera work when you're using the Apple CarPlay? Well, it quickly switches back to the OEM system and it works as normal, including the lines and sensors and everything else. Nice, right? So what about the radio? Well, this device does not have a radio built in and you cannot mix the two audio sources together. So you cannot have your navigation and listen to the radio at the same time since one is the original BMW system and the other one is the new unit. The best solution for using, as an example, Google Maps and listening to the radio at the same time that I have found was to play the radio station you want or save it to one of the memory buttons on your BMW and then open up the unit or the Apple CarPlay. But do not switch the audio sources to the auxiliary, which is what it's supposed to be set to when you normally use the Apple CarPlay, and use it without any sound. It's not the best solution, but it works. Of course, you can always use the radio apps on the Apple CarPlay as well. Speaking of switching back and forth, how easy is it to switch between the two systems? Well, this system starts up when you unlock the car and the phone connects automatically. So to switch back to the BMW system, you just have to hold the back button for 3 seconds. Cool, so we can switch between the systems. But does it use the original BMW microphones? Or do you have to wire up the one that came with the unit? Luckily, the answer to this one is yes. It does use the original microphone in the car. If your car didn't have one or it's broken, you can of course use the one that came with the unit, but you'll have to route it to the proper position. These microphones are of course used for both Siri commands as well as the voice calls. What's the weather like?
It's currently raining and 75 degrees.
Speaking of voice calls, how is the sound quality? Well, the quality coming in sounds absolutely perfect.
Of North America. If you are calling about a BMW...
However, I had a complaint from someone on the other line saying that it sounded like I am on a speaker. So I went in and played with the options. Enabling this option made it sound much better in my car. But I think it depends on your car setup. Some cars have 1 mic, 2 mics, 3 mics, whatever it may be. You'll have to adjust it in the settings here. Overall, it's pretty good, but not amazing. Luckily, there is an option to allow phone calls to be handled by the BMW system directly. What about playing music? How is that experience? When used wirelessly, there is a slight delay in audio. Of course, this isn't a problem if you're just listening to music, but it can be noticeable when watching a YouTube video or something like that. It also isn't nearly as bad as it was on the original BMW Bluetooth audio. This problem can be fixed easily by plugging in the phone via USB. You can also use AirPlay, which is wireless and has no delay whatsoever, but it is a little bit more fiddly to connect. It clones everything on your phone to the screen, including videos, movies, apps, whatever else. One feature I miss from the original system is volume based on your speed. The volume does not adjust automatically as you go faster or slower. I love that feature. Now let's talk a little bit on how well it integrates into the car. The iDrive controller and all of the buttons around it work as you would expect. All of the buttons on the steering wheel work great as well, and you can even use the little scroll wheel here on the steering wheel as your secondary controller. I use this most of all as I can keep my hands on the steering wheel and perform most of the functions. One item that I wish would have been integrated is the heads-up display. While it still displays your speed and other BMW items, it does not show any of the music or navigation information. So if you rely on the arrows and instructions being up on your windshield while you're using GPS, this might not be for you. I did a little bit of research on this and it looks like the display is basically run by a different computer or module, and since this device is just sitting between the head unit and the display, it cannot control it. The last item is more related to the Apple CarPlay in general. I've had a few questions on what apps are available and can you install this or that, or can you install stuff like Netflix or YouTube. Apple CarPlay allows you to basically install only navigation and audio related apps. So you can have your Google or Apple Maps and Waze for your navigation, Spotify, Apple Music, or even radio apps like TuneIn or iHeartRadio for your audio, and even podcast and audiobook apps are available. Besides those, WhatsApp and standard messaging apps are also
Would you like me to
available,
compose a
but
new
mostly
message
only
or
work
make a
through
call?
Siri. So you cannot type in a message
Cancel.
directly as an example. You have to
I
talk
will
it
not
out
then.
basically. There are of course some other ones like the Spot Hero app to find and pay for parking, or the PlugShare app to find local charging stations if you have an electric vehicle, and a few different car-specific apps like that. Well guys, this video turned out much longer than I expected, but I really wanted to answer as many common questions as possible and make the decision easier for you. So what do I think of it and would I do it again? Well, this may not be as good as the OEM installation of Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but it damn sure is 10 times better and easier to use than the original BMW navigation and media player. I also love that my fiance can easily use her phone with the car without having to set it up for an hour. On that note, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, and I will see you in the next one.